The following is intended for mature audiences.
Hello, Screamers.
Welcome into another special edition of the Scream Society podcast. Now, this episode, I wanted to change things up a little bit and ask you all to choose what I should do for this episode. From talking all things horror to finding the craziest stories on Reddit to even a little Q&A episode. Well, the society spoke and chose reacting to and finding the craziest Reddit stories I could find because it's a big world out there. Why not? Just a reminder, if you aren't following the podcast over on Instagram, what are you even doing? If you want to participate in future episodes, follow Scream Society Podcast on Instagram. I'm the most interactive on there. Now, I chose experiences/stories with a wide variety of topics and perspectives. Some cover the aftermath of a freak accident, death. Others are of beastly encounters, otherworldly beings, and even sex. As always, I am not here to persuade you into believing these as fact, but like I do with the stories people have shared with me and this podcast, believe what you will, but I will never discredit anyone's experience. Now, let's get into it.
Welcome to a world where darkness and mystery converge. Navigate the depths of horror and true crime and join a society beyond the ordinary, where buzzworthy topics, paranormal tales, and listener-submitted experiences blend into a realm of the unknown. You have crossed into a place where the unusual and the terrifying are just the beginning. My name is Ralph Anthony, and welcome to the Scream Society podcast.
So, these first three stories are under a category I call post-mortem. Get it? Well, you will. From Reddit user Ttoxy2. I drove up on the aftermath of a car accident a few minutes before fire rescue got there. Coming into town on the freeway, the speed limit dropped from 110 to 60 kilometers an hour, not miles. A car had pulled into the freeway, but the car already there didn't slow down. They were still doing 110 in the 60 zone, so I guess the car that pulled in misjudged how much space they had and was hit square on the side. But that was fine, believe it or not. Side airbag deployed, dude in the car that pulled out seemed fine, but the car caught fire, and the frame was bent enough that I couldn't open any of the doors, and fire rescue wasn't there yet. I tried breaking the windows with my hands, but it's not actually that easy to break automotive glass, even when it's already cracked. So I just watched him burn to death, screaming for help. He still comes to me in nightmares 11 years later. Whoa. Screamers. It may not seem like long, but typical fire scenarios result in death within what? What are we talking? 5 to 10 minutes due to either a heat stroke or lack of oxygen, inhaling smoke, not to mention the flames burning through skin, fat, and muscle. Like, I'll have nightmares just reading this because can you imagine watching someone burn to death? From Reddit user Big Bad L. My friend's boss bought an Audi A4 convertible back when they were new and interesting. One of the talking points was the pop-up roll hoops that were hidden unless you rolled it. A few months after buying it, he got to test those roll hoops out as he lost control and skidded down a steep bank about 10 meters, which is 35 feet deep. The roll hoops did their job, and he survived with just cuts and scratches from the bushes he'd plowed through. The car ended up the right way up, and he got out, walked back up the bank to the side of the road, then got on the phone to the police to report the accident. While he was standing there, a driver from a car that had seen the accident came over to speak with him. Approaching from behind, the other driver asked if he was okay. My friend's boss turned around to reply and dropped dead. His neck had been fractured, but was in one piece right up until he turned his head when it severed his spinal cord. This is an injury known as an internal decapitation. And Little personal story here. A few years back, someone I am related to got into this really horrific car accident during the holidays. I think it was like during a rainstorm or something. And they were internally decapitated. It was pretty scary, actually. Thankfully, they survived. But I just remember thinking back and being so confused because that had been the first time that I had heard about an internal decapitation. Like I never knew something like that was possible. It's really crazy. From Reddit user Meeks a Babe. In 2018, I was driving on the freeway in San Diego. All of a sudden, traffic came to a stop and I saw smoke. I thought it was a bushfire. As traffic began to funnel on the right-hand side, I saw the smoke was coming from a massive car crash in the fast lane. Car pieces everywhere. One was on fire. One was flipped upside down. The damage was super spread out. The car on fire was probably 250 meters from the flipped car. Traffic was funneling really slowly. I saw people running to help. It didn't hit me that there were no police or fire department. I didn't realize it had literally just happened. As I'm scanning the damage, I saw body parts, a leg, a torso. I started to hyperventilate and a man motioned to me, "It's okay, it's okay." When I got home, I just cried. I found out later it was some 18-year-old with a suicide wish that purposely drove the wrong way up the carpool exit lane and crashed head-on with the mother and her 12-year-old daughter. He crashed into them with so much force that his car was in pieces. Their car was the one on fire, and the other car tried to swerve and flipped over. It really messed me up. It made me realize how fast it can all be over. May the family rest in peace. You know, now that I think about it, doing these freak car accident Reddit stories, it just jogged my memory of a story that I heard a few years ago. And after hearing the story, my curiosity prompted me to seek out these photos, which once I tell you, look at your own risk, because I know we're all curious creatures. But have you guys heard of Porsche Girl? The story goes, back in October of 2006, I think it was Halloween, this 18-year-old girl named Nikki Kitsaris died after losing control of her dad's Porsche while driving over 100 miles per hour. This happened in California. But what's more fucked here is that graphic photos of the crime scene of her disfigured body were leaked by 2 California highway patrols, leading to this massive online circulation, trolling, and harassment of her family. Like I said, this happened in 2006, but I heard about this around 2012 because I think that's when the case had resurfaced, because the family had fought for years up until 2012 with this long legal battle against the CHP. And they eventually reached a settlement of approximately $2.37 million. Like I said, it's extremely graphic. Like it's really bad. So if you do go and search, do so with caution. Now, these next 2 stories I came across definitely validates why I don't like to swim in large bodies of water alone. I'm a great swimmer too. Like, have you ever been to a lake or even the beach and stepped on something and you're like, what the fuck is that? Or you felt like something was watching you underwater? All my thalassophobians out there, you have been warned. From Reddit user, a skeeter on my Peter. Was about 7 or 8 years old and went with my family to this man-made lake, Family Park Place in South Georgia. Basically a big dugout pond that the owner put a bunch of beach sand and palm trees around and charged admission for people to come, park their cars, grill, and swim for the day. Also had a big, unsafe as hell water slide that kids got hurt on. So where my family would park was in front of this little island that was a clump of sand about 30 yards off the shoreline. I was not the best swimmer, but the depth was just above my head, so I could bob up and down and bounce out to this island. Bouncing out to that little island one day we were there, my foot came down onto what felt like a face. Felt what was a nose on my toe. The thing I remember is the feeling of hair flowing between my toes. That feeling of fine hair waving in water. I freaked out and for the longest time just sat on the shore. I was a little kid and did not think anything about it. I can still remember the scared parents going around yelling the kid's name. asking if anyone had seen this little boy. They pulled his body from the water right in front of that island. I'm 47 now and can still remember the feeling of that hair between my toes. From Reddit user M. Rawls. When I was a teenager in the late 80s, me and 2 friends were at our local neighborhood pool. It was late afternoon towards the end of summer, and nobody was at the pool except the 3 of us. There were no lifeguards. The pool was completely fenced in with a tall, probably 10 to 12 foot tall chain link fence, and the only way to get inside was through a keypad door. 2 of my friends wanted to smoke weed, but I wasn't interested, so I just swam. After we had been there maybe an hour, my friends were on the deep end of the pool, one of them swimming in the deep end and the other standing around by the deep end. I swam underwater with my eyes closed from the deep end all the way to the shallow end. While I was swimming, I thought I felt like I was swimming by someone. You know that feeling when swimming underwater where you can definitely feel like you are swimming next to someone? Anyway, I didn't think much of it. I figured my friend who was swimming was deciding to race me or something. I came up at the end of the shallow end of the pool, and right after I emerged, I felt someone tapping me on my right shoulder 2 or 3 times. I turned around and saw nobody there, and there was no way it was someone standing in front of me by the pool who reached over and tapped me. Before I said anything about it, in fact, this was right after I had turned around after being tapped on the shoulder, I noticed my friend who was in the water at the deep end still there being helped out by my other friend who was still standing on the outside. They both had very concerned, serious looks on their faces. Before I said anything, they noticed I had surfaced and asked me, "Did you see it?" I responded, "See what?" I thought I swam by something and something just tapped me on the shoulder. What's going on? Their eyes got bigger than I had ever seen, and they both started screaming at me to get out of the water. They started telling me what they saw. My friend who was standing around said she saw a dark shape swim right past me when I was swimming underwater to the shallow end of the pool, but they couldn't make out who or what it was. They thought maybe it was an animal. Well, of course, I got right out of the pool myself. We gathered our stuff and booked it the hell out of there. We only ever talked about this experience in hushed tones after that day. I have thought about this event many times in my life, and I, for the life of me, just cannot come up with any rational explanation for what happened. I can't see how they pranked me, or someone else pranked us. There's no way I just imagined what happened. Remember, they saw something too, and were already freaking out before I had said anything to them. Ghosts, aliens, someone with a neat invisibility suit in the late 80s. Who knows? Okay, this next one, truly terrifying and something I talk about a lot on this show. From Reddit user Lost Triforce. Wife and I went Christmas shopping in 2005 at a local mall that was packed with people. Christmas music's playing in the background, the mall filled with Christmas decorations. We go to Suncoast, leave empty-handed, and head back to the main corridor of the mall. My wife stopped us in our tracks saying she remembered some friends' DVDs would be a good gift for someone, so we turned around and went back toward the Suncoast. A few seconds later, shots started going off, and the sounds echoing up and down the hallways made it sound like there were several shooters. We were heading straight to where the shooter opened fire, only spared being right in front of him because of my wife. We ran, and most everyone in the vicinity ran into the Suncoast, but we saw some old women frozen in place, in fear, like statues. We yelled at them to come inside to safety, but they didn't move, so I and someone else ran out to push them inside. We got in the store, an employee put the security gate down, but we were fish in a barrel. Mass shootings weren't as common, so my initial thought was some gang thing, but then the shots kept going off, the people screaming. We knew we had to get out of there, so they let us bail out the back exit. Some cop cars on site with more arriving as we're leaving, people panicked, crying all over. It was pretty intense, and I'll never forget that eerie mix of Christmas music, screams, and gunfire. That ends their story, but at the very end, Lost Triforce posted a link for more info. Turns out they were a part of the Tacoma Mall shooting, where the shooter Dominic Maldonado entered the Tacoma shopping mall around 12:15 p.m. on November 20th, 2005, and opened fire with a semi-automatic rifle. However, Brendan McCown, who was a mall employee, stepped in. He drew his 9mm pistol, but then had second thoughts of shooting a kid, McCown, with his handgun still holstered, verbally commanded Maldonado to put down his gun. Maldonado's response was to fire on McCown, striking him once in the leg and 4 times in the torso, damaging McCown's spine and leaving him paralyzed. In addition to McCown, 5 other people were shot but not seriously injured, and a 7th person received a non-gunshot injury. At least one other person in the mall at the time also pulled a gun on Maldonado, but did not fire for fear of hitting innocent bystanders, which I understand, but I think in a situation like this, you would want to do what you can to take this person down. And as this was a terrifying situation that could have ended more tragic, no one was actually killed during the shooting, thankfully. Maldonado then took 4 people hostage in a Sam Goody store, remember that place? Including 2 employees, a customer, and a 12-year-old boy. The hostage situation lasted until 4 p.m. when Maldonado finally surrendered to a Tacoma police SWAT team. So the motive wasn't entirely clear, but it had been documented that the shooter had a criminal history. He separated from his girlfriend and had been on meth. So after several incidents and even a prison escape attempt, Dominic Maldonado remains incarcerated. And holy fuck. And I know I hate living in fear, but broken record over here. I always observe my surroundings, keeping an eye out for exits, keeping an eye out for paths in case things like this happen. I mean, it is a really scary world out there, especially now. Anyway, let's take a break. Flashing lights, beastly encounters, and even horrifying dildos coming up.
From the blood-soaked depths of late-night horror comes a collection so shocking, so scandalous, it'll make your wardrobe scream. Want my face on your chest? Or maybe you just want to rep the cult, the logo, the legend, the Scream Society? Don't just listen to the nightmare, wear it. Rep it, live it. Get it now before it gets you. Head to scream-society.printify.me and rep Scream Society merch.
Welcome back. These next stories share some truly fond childhood memories. From Reddit user Moustache2258. When I was about 10, all of my cousins and siblings were over, about 10 of us there. The parents and grandparents were out for an adult dinner, so it was just the kids sitting around watching a few movies when all of a sudden the house shook and there was a large flash coming from the backyard. It felt as if a bomb dropped. We all heard, felt, and saw it, and as a pack, we ran into the hallway. The eldest cousins in the group debated on calling the police, but opted to call the parents. After a few minutes, we gained our courage and ventured out into the living room again, this time with weapons. After a half hour with no other issues, the parents came home and thought we were insane. There was nothing wrong with the backyard and no neighbors reported anything. It's been 10 years and we still talk about it, trying to figure out what it was. That has been the scariest thing to happen to me by far. So I have a theory about this one, y'all, because I've experienced something similar one morning and it scared the shit out of me. So like I said, one morning, the sun wasn't even out yet. I jumped out of bed. And to make matters worse, the emergency sirens that I'm sure most cities have were going off. The ones that go off during like a natural disaster or nuclear attacks, which means run, go find shelter. Usually hear them in like movies and stuff. So anyway, it turns out it was just thunder and lightning. But I've experienced thunder and lightning my entire life, but I have never heard or felt anything like that ever. So that could have been what this scenario was. I don't know. I just know Mother Nature can be a bitch when she wants to be. Next story. From Reddit user Malarkey Bandini. I've seen some pretty wild stuff in my life, but most of it is explainable. The one event that comes to mind was witnessed by my dad, brother, and myself, and it's a 2-part encounter, but I still consider it one event. This is a bit long and I apologize, but I feel it might be worth the read. It was around 1998. My family and I had just moved into an old clapboard house on the edge of town. It had a huge backyard with a 6-foot wooden privacy fence on one side and a metal chain link fence about 4.5 feet high around the other 3 sides of the yard. Neighbors on one side, the privacy fence side, a small grass alley that ran behind the back with a street light, and then another yard, etc. Our bedroom was an old converted sunroom in the back of the house that faces the backyard. It had floor-to-ceiling windows all along the back wall, looking into the backyard. We didn't have many options as to where to place our beds, so my headboard was against the windows, and my brother's bed was about 8 feet away with his headboard against the opposite wall with the foot of the bed facing the windows. One night, we were up pretty late. I was in my bed, and he was in his just talking about random things, when suddenly he got quiet. I figured he fell asleep, but then I heard him whispering in a shaky breath, so I'm like, what? And I hear him whisper again. So again, I'm like, speak up, I can't hear you. And he goes, don't move, be quiet. And mind you, my head is to the window and he's pointing into the backyard behind my bed. So quickly I sit up and turn around and see this huge dog head staring almost nose to glass through the window right behind my bed. I'm almost nose to nose with this thing. Just a single pane of glass and about 10 inches of empty air separate me from this thing. Now, when I say I screamed, I mean I screamed. Not my proudest moment, but hey, I was like 10 years old. Well, anyways, the thing quickly ducked under the window and then ran to the side of the yard and jumped the 4.5-foot chain link fence and bolted off into the darkness. My dad came running into the room with our mom right on his heels. We were able to get out that something was looking through our window. So dad ran back to his room and grabbed his shotgun and then headed out the side door of the house and into the backyard. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I don't know, he didn't find anything. Wrote it off as I had a nightmare and my brother wouldn't admit to seeing anything. I took the blame and was told to quit messing around, go back to bed, typical parent response, etc. Well, later that night, maybe an hour or so, after I begged my parents to let me sleep in the living room because leaving the house wasn't an option and still being refused, I was made to sleep in my room. So again, my brother and I are in our room with these floor-to-ceiling windows. We are just completely rattled. We are both huddled in his bed, staring out the window when we see this thing come walking along the chain link fence on all fours, and the fence only comes up to its mid-shoulders, so this thing is huge. It sniffs the ground, does a few circles, and then hops the fence into the backyard like it's nothing. It walks over to the window, and again, gets nose to glass like it's trying to see in. We are panicking the whole time. Well, my brother is like, fuck this, and soon as he steps off the bed, we hear this loud bang, and there is a flash of light. The thing at the windows gets knocked sideways, and without even missing a beat, it turns and runs across the full length of the backyard, jumps the back chain link fence, and then landed in the back neighbor's yard. This is easily a 15 to 20 foot jump minimum, clearing their fence like it was nothing, and was gone at a dead run. My dad comes tearing around the side of the house with his shotgun in hand and makes a mad dash for the side door and slams it shut behind him. He is screaming and hollering, we gotta go. We pack up and head to a hotel for that night. My mom absolutely refused to believe we saw what we said we saw, and we only lived there for about 6 months. It rattled my dad so much, he didn't even want to come back. He told my mom that we were just gonna move that next day, but she wouldn't allow it. After about 6 months, she gave in and we moved. Mind you, this is in the coastal plains region of Texas. We have no large wild canines here. We have stray dogs and coyotes, but nothing that would even remotely touch on how big this thing was. My dad swears he shot that thing with the slug from about 15 feet away with his 12-gauge shotgun right underneath its left arm, hitting its ribs where its vital organs are, and nothing. It just ran off. He said the thing that freaked him out the most was that when he saw the thing jump the fence, it walked towards our window, crouched, but still on its hind legs. It wasn't walking on all fours, and then when it got to our window, it stood up straighter, and he could tell that while it looked like a dog, its body was shaped wrong. He said it looked like a really stocky person wearing a dog suit. Also, that when it was walking in circles, sniffing the ground before coming into our yard the second time, it wasn't actually sniffing the ground like for a scent. It was staring at our window with its face to the ground, like it was acting like it was sniffing the ground, almost as if it was playing a part to see if anyone would notice it. A while later, I asked my dad why he was in the backyard, if he thought I was having a nightmare, and he told me my brother is the one that gave it away. He said with how panicked I looked that my brother was almost white as a sheet and wouldn't take his eyes off the window. He said your brother has never looked so scared and never been one with just making stuff up. So after going back to his room with my mom as he was laying there thinking about it, he decided that if my brother was as white as he was, then we had to have seen something. So he grabbed his gun in the case he had to scare some creeper out of our yard and figured he was going to go through the garage and out by the far side of the house and sneak to the corner to see if someone was peeking in our windows or if someone was actually messing with us. He never actually thought we saw a huge dog-looking thing, just that maybe with it being dark outside and us being kids with overactive imaginations, maybe we just mistook someone as something. But when he saw that thing come up the side of the fence and with the street light in the back alley lighting up the backyard, he saw it and it freaked him out. He said as it stood up, he just got this instant feeling of just dread, like something was gonna happen to us. So this one was creepy as shit. The comments under the story kept pointing to skinwalkers or something called Dogman. This could have very well been a huge deformed dog, which sounds crazy on its own. Let me look up Dogman for one moment. What is Dogman? Witnesses describe a creature that is a hybrid between a man and a wolf, frequently running on two legs but capable of moving on all fours. It is described as having dark fur, high intelligence, and sometimes human-like eyes. That's fucking creepy. While alleged sightings date to the late 19th century, the legend was largely sparked in 1987 by DJ Steve Cook, who created a song about the beast that was intended as an April Fool's hoax, yet triggered numerous unexpected listener reports. Theories range from it being a surviving prehistoric bear dog or dire wolf to a modern, undocumented species, or even a product of secret escaped government bioengineering experiments. Creepy. All right. This next story has been titled on Reddit as the coolest ghost story ever. So let's get into it. From Reddit user MacRich1980. Years ago, 2006, I went on a date, and as we left the pub, I walked her home. This very polite man passing us said, "I hope you two had a great night." He looked familiar. We said thanks, and as we turned to walk away, I said to her, "Oh my God, that guy had no feet." It turns out she wanted to say the exact same thing. Then the man was gone. There was nowhere for him to turn. He vanished. It's like his legs were sunk in the concrete of the pavement. Anyway, while flicking through a family album, this guy was in so many photos. Big lapels, 70s bell-bottom jeans. It was my Uncle Tommy, who died in 1986. Absolutely weird. And as for the feet missing part of this, that road used to be a cobblestone road up until mid-1990s, when it was raised with tarmac and concrete. So what I'm getting from this is bro's uncle became a glitching NPC. Moving on. And as always, with these types of stories and cases, I will always issue a strong trigger warning because I do not know what people are going through out there. And I don't want them to listen to something that will bring up a lot of traumatic experiences and feelings. Now, as for this one, I call it Rest in Piss, Asshole. From Reddit user Raptor Sandwich 27. I was with a guy for a couple of years when I realized that he'd taken up smoking meth as a hobby after work. We had numerous problems already, and I had 3 small children, so I finally kicked him out. A few days later, maybe a week, he makes up a fake Facebook page and sends me a friend request. The only posts on the page were talking about killing me and my children, his suicide, and how he planned to do it that day. The most recent post was accompanied by a selfie of him in my backyard, a recent selfie, so he had been there. I was on my way home with the kids late in the evening when I got a request. I had stopped by my parents' home the day before and gotten my dad's 9mm handgun because he was sending messages through mutual friends about burning my house down. I called the police as soon as I got home, and they didn't seem to think it was a big deal and didn't have an officer available to come check my house before we walked into it. I live in the middle of the woods and we have a rinky-dink police force. Anyway, I made the kids stay in the car. I gave my oldest instructions on what to do if anything happened, and I had to sweep my own home in the dark with a 9mm in case he was in there waiting for me and my children. And it was terrifying. I had to check my entire house, every time we came home for a while, and I was always worried that I'd eventually find him in there. Police were called numerous times, and I was eventually granted a restraining order a couple weeks later when the death threats continued. He died about a year ago, and all I felt was relief. And there you have it, another instance of the police and the system failing us. Before continuing on to the final stories, if you would like to submit similar stories, experiences, situationships, and or want me to answer your questions while doing my best to give you perspective and or a little advice, submit to screamsocietypodcast@gmail.com. My inbox is always open over on Instagram at screamsocietypodcast, or click the anonymous submissions link in all my bios. And remember, mostly, everything remains anonymous. These final Reddit stories I want you to take as a lesson on what not to do with your significant other. From Reddit user Kurt Cuddy. I had a pretty scary experience back in the summer of 2012 with one of my ex-girlfriends. Earlier that day, we had visited a friend of mine who was, and likely still is, into the occult and stuff like that. At around 2 a.m. that night, being skeptics, we decided to call on Baphomet, the half-human, half-goat devil entity / demon. Candles were lit, random things were said from obscure websites on the internet, and nothing initially happened. However, roughly an hour later, we both distinctly heard a car pull into the driveway at the front of the house. We heard men talking loudly and walking around on the gravel driveway. I was instantly scared as to what this was, but we both went to see whether someone had come to visit us or something. There was no one out there. Driveway was empty, no one around. We then went back into the bedroom. We were laying on the bed when we both started seeing flashes of light and small bright objects flying around near the ceiling. They changed from being bright in color to being absolutely jet black, and this was quite scary too. We were still watching the ceiling, and then something happened that really shook us both up. We both instantly averted our gaze to the open window, where we heard something walking around on the concrete patio in the garden. To give you an idea, imagine someone walking on concrete wearing wooden clogs. I remember wanting to close the window more than anything, but I was frozen in fear because the walking sounded close by. We were both looking at each other in fear when we both heard the loud bleating of a goat. That was simply too much for both of us, and I remember working up the courage to quickly slam shut the window so we could hide under the covers. Just so you guys know, this was a pretty built-up area, and there were certainly no goats in the vicinity of the area whatsoever. The next morning, we found black marks on the ceiling of our bedroom, like someone had taken a black crayon and randomly drawn all over it. We checked the driveway CCTV too, and no one had visited our driveway all night. We also checked a different camera that covers a much wider area, and it was evident that no one had driven into our road all night either. I will remember this experience till the day I die. I vowed to never mess with the occult or anything like that again. I took the whole incident as a sort of warning. Something like, don't mess around. If you call me, I'll answer. From Reddit user deleted. And you'll understand why they probably deleted their account. Boyfriend thought he would use a dildo he found under the bathroom sink on me one night. He didn't tell me what he was going to do. He just had it all sneaky like. After he put it in, I realized what he'd done and pulled it out, but it was too late. My genitals were on fire. I had to sit in the shower with my legs spread and the shower head right on up there. The reason the dildo was so spicy, I put it under the sink because it accidentally got fly spray on it one day when I was fighting ants. I put it under the sink with full intentions to throw it away on the next bin day, but I had forgotten. I ended up sitting on the shower floor for an hour. He didn't try anything like that again. Edit. How embarrassing that this blew up. To answer your questions about the ants, they were regular sized ants and the dildo was a double-ended one. I did not use a dildo to fight the ants. It was just sprayed accidentally as I was going crazy on the ants, as they've been going everywhere and driving me crazy. Edit 2. Boyfriend had never used a dildo on someone before. All his exes didn't have any that he knows of. He saw it and thought that's what I wanted. There's a lot of vaginal talk going on around here lately, isn't there? This is the last one, and we're going to call it. From Reddit user L Rider. And it's a short one too. An eel removal after biting a cervix. Yes, you are reading this correctly. She didn't know they have teeth. Oh, the things I have seen as an ER nurse in a big coastal city. Eye and brain bleach donations welcome. And someone commented under this simply, dildo. I'm fucking immature. We need to wrap this up. But like, why would you put an, like, I'm not kink shaming, okay? Practice whatever kinks you are into, go on about it. But putting an eel, like a creature from the sea, into a part that is so sensitive and not meant to have an eel, don't those shock you? I don't know. If you made it this far, thank you so much for going on this journey with me. If you want me to do more of these episodes, let me know and leave a 5-star rating and review. And until next time, I will scare you all on the next episode. I'm fucking immature.
Thank you for tuning into the Scream Society podcast, hosted, written, produced, and edited by yours truly, Ralph Anthony. Help the society grow by subscribing on your favorite platform and leave a rating and review. I always strive for 5s. Have a horror or paranormal experience? Want me to answer your questions on the show? Submit to beacons.ai/The Scream Society. Connect with the podcast on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Scream Society Podcast. And until next time, I'll scare you on the next episode.